Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You know you need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Point Blank Safety Services does safety differently. We know everyone is on a journey, and we want to make sure you get where you're going safely. Professional, trained, ready. There's really no comparison. Here's why hiring Point Blank Safety for your next project will make all the difference and save you huge amounts of stress and hassle. Point Blank Safety Services provides certified, uniformed police officers for a full suite of armed guard services. Don't leave the safety of your project to chance. If you're ready to make sure safety truly comes first for your next project, then visit us at pointblanksafety.com.
You're listening to Donnie Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. In this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to find your fire, and then how to keep that thing lit. Hey guys, it is Fridays with Donnie. I am your host, Donnie Boivin, and this is Donnie Success Champions. Man, I love being here on these Fridays with you guys, sharing my knowledge, my wisdom, my screw-ups, my failures. You know, every time I record this episode for Fridays, it really is my most favorite time because I get a chance to, document my story, but I also get to walk you guys through things that I'm working on or working through. It is just a very, very, very cool time for me. You know, it's interesting to me. I was interviewed on a show yesterday, The Inspired Cafe. Great, great podcast. Man, she's really good at what she does. Kathy was amazing. But, we talked about a lot about my story and how I got to where I'm at now. I think she was a little surprised because, I told her the story. And if you've listened to the show before, I've talked about it, but I told her the story about how it took me 40 years to really start figuring out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that it took me, completely jumping out of my own and doing something really, really crazy of starting my own company before I figured out, what I was made of. And we chatted for a while about what caused the delay in me going for it. And it was a really, really, really fun conversation. And I like it when I can use my story to get you guys hopefully some great pointers. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do today. So I really think that inside of each one of us is a fire burning of some sort. For some people, that fire is a, campfire that's flickering, and, there's like 2 or 3 people around the fire that are keeping it tended and nice and warm. And then there's other people that their flame is explosive. I mean, when I think about guys who have a bonfire for an internal flame, guys like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar come to mind. Those guys, when they walked in front of a room, the room just lit up. Guys like Eric Thomas, C.T. Flesher, they're there giving their raw truth and firing an audience or a room up. And it's very, very, very cool because you can see their flame. You can see their passion. You can see what they're into. And it's, man, it's killer. But, a lot of people struggle with finding that internal fire on a regular basis. And I think a lot of it has to do with the outside influences that people are putting in front of themselves. They're not going for life like they should be. They're not challenging life like they should be. They're just kind of moving through the actions in hopes that life shows up for them. And man, I lived this way for many years. And as I look back, it's frustrating because I've missed out on some very cool growth opportunities because I wasn't trying to feed my fire. I was just trying to move through life. See, there's been a lot of times early on in my life where I could have been something more. I could have done something bigger, but I played it safe or I played it simple. And, a lot of times I did just enough to get by. And I got really good at convincing others that I was doing a hell of a lot more than I actually was. So I was seen as a hell of a lot more successful than I was. And, the interesting thing is a mentor of mine at one point said, Donnie, when you do that, you realize you're only hurting yourself. And that thought didn't sink in till years later, when I realized that I literally lost out on some cool growth opportunities because I wasn't pushing for it. And you can never go back in time. I don't regret how I've been brought up, but if I would have changed something, it would have been I would have bet on me 20 years ago and gone for it. But I do know why there's no regrets, because everything I've done has shaped me to who I am now and has prepared me for this portion of my journey. And, it's the same for you. Wherever you're at in your life, whatever you're going through, what you have already been through has prepared you for this moment. And it's telling you that you've got the tools, you've got the assets, you've got everything you need to be able to really, really, really go for it and be okay. And I don't know if you were like me on your journey, but fear really held me back from betting on me. I was worried about losing all my stuff, my home, my cars, my farm, friendships. I thought that if I really, really, really went for it all, I would lose it all. And, me losing it all, it doesn't affect me. It affects my wife and it affects her mom, who lives in a house on our farm. If I lose it, they all lose it. And because I hear it all the time from people, they're like, look, man, I'd love to go for it. I'd love to go all in, but I've got 3 kids. I've got a house. I got car payments. I'm like, all right, cool. You got one life. You've got to bet on you, because look, you either have one or two choices. And I really, really, really believe this. You either decide that you're going to go for it, or you shut the hell up and get okay with where you're at in life. You can't, or you shouldn't, can't's a strong word, you shouldn't sit there and daydream about this life you want and then do nothing about it, because all that's going to do is make you flipping miserable. I mean, it's just going to make you despise everything in life. I mean, because I know I did it. I was the guy where, if the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And it was very much wrapped around this thought process that if I could do X, then life would get better. And interestingly enough, I would often daydream about the life I wanted to live, but then I would do nothing about it. And it started this perpetual circle of being pissed off and this loop of inaction. And man, it just sucked, because I was constantly lying to myself that I was going for it, but not taking the proper actions, doing things to be busy. And then when 30 days later, I was still in the same position I was because I wasn't actively evolving, because I wasn't taking the risk and challenging myself to do those things that I needed to do. So as I've learned, you need to learn that if you're just sitting around telling yourself that you're going to find whatever that success is for you, whatever that monetary win is, whatever that lifestyle that you want, if you're just sitting around dreaming about it, and I know you hear gurus say it all the time, you're dreaming but not taking action, but the truth is, if you're dreaming and not taking risks, then you're never going to get there. Because trust me, the person you are right now is not the person you need to become to get where you want to go. You have got to start literally taking risks and betting on yourself. Because, look, when I jumped out and started this company, I really thought that I was ready to do this. I mean, I really thought that I was going to find immediate success. And the truth of the matter is, I wasn't fully prepared to make this leap. And I encourage people to not do it the way I did. But for me, taking that huge ass leap of starting my own company with no safety net, forced me to continue to have to take risks and figure out what the hell I'm made of. And in doing that, it forced my hand I had to evolve. I had to become something more, because the knowledge I had at that point was not enough. I mean, I didn't know the things you needed to know to become a business owner. So I had to literally evolve and learn different thought processes, different habits, different behaviors, and, start really figuring out what I needed to be to run a successful company. And that's the whole point. That's how you find your flame. That's how you figure out who you are and light that fire up, by literally taking risks. And I'm not, once again, as always, I'm not talking about jumping out of planes type things. I'm talking about the risk of doing the thing that scares the hell out of you, and doing the things that make you uncomfortable, so that you can do more with it and be more with it. It's interesting to me that as I've gone through my journey here, I always thought that I was challenging myself. I always thought that I was pushing myself further than I actually was. And, it's funny is I wasn't, pushing myself at all. I'd go to these conferences, I'd read these books, I would, do stuff, what I thought was work on me. But all I was doing was shuffling one shit pile to the other. And what I mean is I would go to a conference, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but you go to a conference and you got a notepad, or they give you a notepad. And while at the conference, you're just scrambling and taking a ton of notes, right? You're writing notes in the margin, you're underlining things, you're circling things. And if you're a note taker like me, I write all those things down, and then I go back and I have no idea what the hell that note I wrote down meant. Anybody been there? But you go to these conferences and you've got, pages upon pages upon pages of notes, and you just feel all excited and you feel all, amped up. And then you leave the conference. And a lot of times on the flight home from a conference, man, I'd be in my chair going back and dissecting everything I learned. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to implement this. I'm going to put this in play. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to create this. And dude, next year is going to be the year. That's the year I'm going to go for it. And dude, hold my beer and watch this, because shit's about to get real. And the funny thing is every time I'd come back from conference, you come back maybe on a Friday, you fly home, I'd see the wife, we'd usually, grab a dinner or something out. And then, Saturday and Sunday, you work on the house, or in my case, you work on the farm. And then, Monday comes, Sunday night, you're still a little fired up. So you look back over your notes. You go to bed excited because you're going to just kill it on Monday. You know it's coming. You get there Monday, and then you walk into your office and you begin. And the trick is, as soon as you start. I did, but I didn't recognize it. But as soon as you start that you're not going to follow through with this, that you're not going to continue to push through with this, but you're trying to keep that motivation, that inspiration, that feeling alive. So you start going through the motions. And then that little gremlin pops up and starts talking in your ear. And he starts saying things like, man, that feels like a lot of work. This doesn't feel like fun at all. Right? Why can't I just get where I want to go? Why do I got to go through this? Man, I don't want to do this. And now you start going through the motions of, I've done a little bit here. I've worked on coming. Let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's go say hi to an office mate. And next thing you know is you find yourself in the spot of half-assery. And people come up that you went to conference with, and they walk by and they're like, hey, how's it going? Are you implementing all that stuff? You're like, dude, I'm crushing it, man. It's freaking awesome. And in the back of your head that you've been half-assing it and not doing it. But you're damn sure not going to tell anybody else that, right? You're not going to tell anybody else that you've half-assed this thought process. You're just going to go with it. And then a week goes by. Nothing's changed. Another week goes by, nothing's changed. A month's gone by, nothing's changed. And then you find yourself at the end of the year and your numbers aren't there, or your business isn't at the level it needs to be at, or you haven't hit your goals, or you haven't hit your milestones. And now you're pissed because you're still in the same spot you were before you went to that conference. And you're like, damn, I paid a lot of money to do that, or somebody paid a lot of money for you to go to that. Then what the hell's the point? Why should I do all this stuff? Because I'm not getting anywhere. And the problem is, it's not just the motions. It's not just the actions that you're taking after that conference. It's the actions aren't big enough. You're not taking enough risk after that, because motivation, we know, is an action. But development and learning come from risk taking. And see, when you come back from that conference, you're trying to do bigger things being the same person you were before you went. And it doesn't work, because you have to evolve, because the person who you were before you went to the conference, that person doesn't like to do that work. They're not lazy. They just don't want to do that. They don't want to do things like cold calls. They don't want to do things like business development and marketing and social media and all that stuff. That person wants to sit back and just socialize, make friends, and continue to move forward in a mundane lifestyle. But when you get back from something massive like that, it's not about just taking action to move forward. It's about taking risks and start doing the things that scare yourself. Because I can tell you, for me, when I went to my last conference, I came back, just lit, fired up, excited, and ready to go. And I had that thought process of, Donnie, you got two choices. You can either be and do what you've always done and go after it, for it, the way you've always done it. Or you can start shocking the system. And for me, that's what I had to do. I had to start shocking the system. I had to start changing it up. I had to start doing bigger things. And man, when you start taking risk, and that's what I mean by betting on yourself, is taking a risk knowing that you could go into it to lose. I mean, not to lose, but you could lose. And being okay with that, and not caring about the opinions of other people. It's wild that oftentimes early in my life that I put my worth in other people's hands. And when you do that, you can never value yourself. You can never look at yourself and go, I'm a great person. Because as soon as you see somebody else and they make a comment or statement, you immediately devalue yourself because you believe whatever they said. And it really, really sucks. So to find the fire within you, you have to become the flame. And the flame is filled with risk. The flame is filled with tenacity, grit. It's the willingness to jump in and step straight into that fear and do the things that absolutely scare the crap out of you. And I'm going to keep harping on this on these Friday episodes because, without stepping into that fear, you're never going to find growth. You're going to play it safe. You've got to lean into it and go. Guys, for a lot of my life, when the fear came forward, I found ways to go around it. Shortcuts, quick paths, and the like. I always found a way to go around it. The problem is, you can't go around it because you don't learn anything. You got to go through it to become it. Which means you got to go screw up so you can learn the things you need to learn to hit that next level and be able to level up. And the more you go for it, the more you challenge life and tell your fear that it's got no power over you, then you can really start going for it. And I can tell you, running my business, that I am nowhere near the same person I was before I started running the company. I have evolved so many times, and I still have a ridiculous way to go, long way to go. But I continue to find myself, and I continue to grow every freaking day because I'm having to do something more. I mean, I'm in the process for right now of building out some chatbots. I'm building some courses. I'll be teaching a podcasting course, helping people get in a podcast. I'm building out a content development course, helping people, to create content on a consistent, regular basis. And I'm getting my speaking circuit up and going and really going after that. And I've already got some cool speeches scheduled for next year. But doing those speeches, is one of those things of, I've never been a keynote style speaker because I've never had a fully prepared speech. Now, I've done trainings, right? But I've never done a fully just prepared speech in front of a room to move a crowd or inspire a crowd. So, I've got to learn that. I've got to learn how to better position myself to be able to handle those bigger rooms and get into those bigger conversations. And inspire. I've got books that are being written right now that'll be sharing my story and, what I've been through. And so there's a lot of moving parts that are forcing me to evolve. And I think when I started my company, I really just thought a lot of this stuff I think would just magically happen, because I sure acted like that was the case. And now that I've been forced to go through all this, I'm quickly figuring out what and who I have to become to continue to make this a successful endeavor. It's been really, really, really wild, but fun. And the only way I've figured out who I need to become is because I've been screwing up quite a bit and learning along the way. But I can tell you that, the Donnie I was before I started my company rears his ugly head every once in a while. And I look down at everything I've done and I'm like, shit, here we are again. So it's a constant battle for me to grind and climb to evolve into that next version. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to evolve. I want you to go for it. Take action, take risks, and expand that is you. And watch what happens. I mean, it's amazing to know that where I've come from and what I've learned, it's inspiring. And I'm really impressed with people that have figured this out earlier in their lives. But guys, I was 40 years old, almost 41 years old, before I really figured a lot of this stuff out. Start now wherever you are and start going for it. Start moving forward and just watch what happens in your life. Man, light that fire up, chase that flame, and just explode into your destiny. Have a great week, guys. Thanks for listening to Donnie's Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.